Now, in this part, what we want to do is get a little bit of a sense from you on one or two party management issues. And the first is from Hazel Dakers, and it's what will each of the leadership candidates do in practical terms to transform the party into an effective campaigning and electioneering machine? What makes each candidate believe he is competent to achieve this? I'm going to start with Nick.
I'd single out three things. Firstly, I think we as a party sometimes operate as a campaigning party in isolation from our everyday work in expressing our views to the media. We need to bring our press operation, our campaigning operation together. Secondly, if we're going to be the party of contemporary Britain, we quite simply have to have contemporary Britain reflected in us. It is totally unacceptable, unsustainable that you've got here two middle-class blokes in suits as the leadership candidates and nobody else. We need to be much more diverse. That's why I have pledged, I'm working with people like Simon Hughes and others to make sure that we really put the resources in place to provide that essential support to get candidates from different backgrounds, more women into the party. And thirdly, bluntly, we need more money. There's just no way around it. I'm afraid in politics today, if we want to grow, we want to get past that glass ceiling, we will need to be inspiring enough, motivating enough, that more people, and not just hard-pressed members, more people who perhaps become fed up with politics altogether, feel that they would really give us their support too, through meaningful financial contributions.
There are far too many, I'm afraid, of our MP colleagues who think that staying up late at night and delivering an oration to an empty House of Commons is a way of changing public opinion. It isn't. The reality is we have to get out of the Westminster bubble and we have to campaign to bring people into the party. I think that what Nick said is absolutely right on diversity. We need to make sure that our party reflects the full diversity, both in terms of gender and in terms of ethnic groups and in terms of sexual orientation that society represents. And I think that we're not doing that at the moment. One of the things I would like to see as leader is I would try and actively headhunt and encourage the party to headhunt people. Often if you want somebody to do something in politics, you have to ask them. They haven't necessarily thought of it for themselves. So that's a very important part of it. But I also want the party to be really ambitious. Nick is right about money. The only way we're going to raise the extra money we need for diversity issues, to give support to candidates, to make us more representative of the party and to win those extra seats, is having a very clear goal over two parliaments where we want to make a real breakthrough and make sure it is simply impossible for us not to break the stifling two-party mould in British politics. Now that means if you're building up a plan for a goal after two parliaments, you're working back to all of the changes in the party organisation that you need, and you can then go out to the donors and say, this is the plan we have that we're trying to raise money on, and be much more ambitious.
Government in two elections, is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that we have to get to a point where, this is obviously up to consultation within the party, where we are in a position where it is impossible to conceive of a government in this country at Westminster without the Liberal Democrats being a part of it and putting forward our ideas. Now that may be 150 seats, which I think what Nick has mentioned in the past, but we need to discuss that. But what is absolutely crucial is not the actual number, it is that we have a clear party goal with all that follows from that we can actually use as a benchmark to measure our progress. Obviously, there are all sorts of events going on which will affect how successful we are, but we can do, I believe, much more as a party by setting very clear goals and working towards them and raising that extra resource which we need to apply all the campaigning techniques that we're very good at, but apply those campaigning techniques to make a breakthrough.
I'm just going to draw you down to specifics in terms of, because you both raised fundraising, so what specifically would you do to change the current fundraising system?
Well, I think it's almost impossible to raise serious money without having a plan against which
so you
somebody
say a plan
would
start
with
set
clear
budget.
Goals,
okay,
clear
I'm going to stop you there
okay.
and ask.
Let me give you two examples. Firstly, I have already decided that what I would do as leader is set up a permanent facility, an academy for candidates, so that we have a permanent infrastructure supporting candidates, supporting also people who might want to become candidates. If you're specific about it and you say, this is what this would cost, this is what this would produce, then you get people saying, okay, I'll put some money forward towards that specific goal.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that both. This is a question dear to my own heart, which is from Christine Marsden, which is, what qualities do you have which will enable you to cope with the unfair treatment that you will receive from the media? And when you speak in the House of Commons, are you tough enough or too nice?
Well, I think I've been involved in our politics since 1981. I fought 3 elections before I finally started winning. I prefer to win. I've been tested. I've been knocked back. I know that I'm capable of handling reverses and bouncing back. That courage, that resilience under pressure is, I think, terribly important in a leader. And I think the party has shown it in spades. We will go on. It's very clear to me, if you look back over the time I've been actively involved in politics, that comparing any given period with the same period in the previous Parliament, we've made enormous progress. People always say, we still don't get a fair crack of the whip, and we don't. But actually, it is better than it was in the last Parliament, it's better than it was in the one before, and we're making steady progress. 6 MPs in 1970, 63 MPs today. 4.5% of the councillors in the mid-1970s, more than 20% of the councillors today, in charge of big cities. We mustn't undersell ourselves. We've made phenomenal progress, and I believe we are near that tipping point at which suddenly people begin to say, hang on a minute, these guys are serious. They're running serious local authorities. They're doing really interesting things. We ought to give them a real chance in government. And when we do that, we're going to make that breakthrough. And I feel very strongly that we're at that tipping point. I would not have given up the safest Liberal Democrat seat in the European Parliament to come to Westminster if I didn't feel that is the big challenge for the rest of my political career, and if we're not absolutely on the edge of making it a reality.
3 points. Firstly, on toughness, I've probably done what is widely considered to be one of the toughest jobs in politics, to be a Liberal Home Affairs spokesman. I've seen off people like Charles Clarke and thugs like John Reid. I'm the only non-Labour politician in the whole of South Yorkshire. Come to Sheffield if you want to see tough politics. I was the first Liberal parliamentarian when I was elected as MEP for the East Midlands, a region of 4.2 million people, in 70 years. I know how to get in there and win new votes off other parties. Secondly, if you look what I've done on the Home Affairs field, I've, month in, month out, after the leader, had the highest number of media hits than any other spokesperson. It's been helped, of course, because of the scandals in the Home Affairs, but still, I'm proud of the fact that in a very difficult area for us, I've punched above our weight. Thirdly, as a party, we need to get away from this idea that all that counts is what the Rupert Murdoch press in London think about us. There are so many millions of people who depend on local and regional media, radio and television, local newspapers, which they trust more as well. And under my leadership, I would put significant effort and resources in getting through to people directly that way, and not endlessly tying ourselves up in knots about whether Rupert Murdoch will ever support us. I doubt he will.
Perhaps I can make one other point on that. If you look at how we perform relative to our rivals, for example, compared with the Conservatives, compared with Labour, one of the interesting things is that over the last year, I have consistently, in the DEFRA team, with my colleagues in the DEFRA team, we've consistently had more media mentions than the Conservatives, and indeed it got to such a state of play in the summer, during the flooding and foot and mouth, that the Conservative blogs were calling for the resignation of the Conservative spokesman. So we've definitely proved that we can actually outplay the Conservatives, and that has come through in the poll ratings, because what we're seeing on the environment is that we are now regarded as the best party on the environment at a higher level than at any time since 1993. It's not satisfactory that the position clearly on the environment is that not enough people yet regard it as a key issue, but it is actually at least satisfying that we have seen off the challenge from David Cameron, and we've exploded his pretensions to making a serious case for Tory environmentalism.
You've both given fulsome answers on the whole discussion
Polite way of putting it, Olly.
That we've had. I'm going to ask you to give 7-second answers on the next question, because we live in a 7-second soundbite age. And it is simply, what will the history books sum up your leadership as? How will they sum it up?
This will be the leadership that gets Liberal Democrat values and principles into power for the first time in a generation.
This is a leadership of optimism and hope, which will break the stifling grip of two-party politics in Britain for good.
Thank you very much.